This is Dr. Drew. If you're unfamiliar, he is a TV doctor. I'm not even sure if he has a medical license anymore. I don't know. He ran Celebrity Hospital and he ran some substance abuse show. I don't remember what. Anyway, Dr. Drew Pinsky, and Peter McCullough. I'm not even going to call him doctor anymore. I understand that they have the necessary, education to call themselves doctors. But A, I'm not sure that they even have medical licenses. I don't know. Maybe. And B, they're betraying their obligation to science and knowledge and all of that other stuff. They're betraying their obligation to that stuff, and it's disgusting.
Do you know that Osama bin Laden's goal was to try to break down the U.S. into 50 independent countries?
Okay. I don't know that that's true. I don't believe anything that this guy says at all. But did you know that Osama bin Laden's niece is a Trump supporter? I mean, I can spout off random facts too, if that is a fact that you gave me. The niece thing, Osama bin Laden's niece thing, that is a fact. That's true.
Well, then he had a little something in common with the guys who wrote the Federalist Papers, because that's sort of what they wanted too, in a way. I'm not.
That's true.
For secession or anything like that, but largely, what happens in your life should have way more to do with the state you live in than the federal government. We now have a very large federal government.
Oh my God!
And states that are in many cases completely non-functional. California and New York, states that should be leading the nation, and that.
Wait, New York is non-functional? What are you talking about? I live in New York City. It's completely 100% functional. It's a great city. What do you mean New York is like a complete train wreck? I assume he's talking about New York City when he says New York, because there are rural areas of New York State that are that vote Republican pretty consistently. He's not talking about those areas. He's talking about the areas that are on the left. Anyway, New York State is fine. New York City is fine. And now I just died. Son of a gun.
And then we have a place like we're in right now, Florida, where everything is functional and everyone is moving here. And whatever our problems are, it's not to say there are no problems, but they're a function of our success. We have very high house prices right now, but it's not because the houses are just sitting there with no one trying to move in. It's because there's insane competition with all the people fleeing. So I sense in our institutions too.
With all the people fleeing what, I'm wondering? What does he think people are fleeing exactly? That's not why house prices are high right now. That's just completely made up. House prices are high at this moment. The market is pretty rough. But I don't know what point he's getting to here with this.
Something like Colombia is now a Frankenstein monster.
Yeah.
If you're the parent of a 16-year-old kid.
No way. You spend 80 grand? No.
No. So the sorting has now begun.
80 grand a year.
And I think, grand a year. Right, 80 grand a year. So I think what will increase.
What the hell are they talking about? I'm so lost.
Increasingly happen is the progressive wing, whatever this thing is, they will have taken over much of the Ivy Leagues. They will still have a lot of power in media and elsewhere, but everyone else, and I mean, it's basically everyone that's not woke, and that is the most of the country.
Woke.
I think they will start building new things. That's what we did right here. I think they'll be building new institutions. I was just at Ralston College in Savannah, Georgia. Absolutely wonderful, teaching a classical education. University of Austin in Texas, and new things will be built. And there will always be a tension between those two things, because a certain set of people won't be happy about those new things being built. They want the monopoly on everyone's minds.
Nobody has a problem with universities opening. That's perfectly fine. Go nuts. If you want to open a university, you're going to have to meet some quality standards, though. People are going to, when they exit, for example, when they exit high school, they're going to have to be able to do some basic math and reading, right? When they exit a college, there should be some base level knowledge that they have on certain things, on certain subjects. I have to imagine the scenario that he's drawing out, it seems to me, is one in which the university that he wants to set up, seemingly, this fictional university, doesn't adhere to any kind of academic standards of any sort. Quick interjection, this won't take long, I promise. I'd appreciate it if you watched to the end of the video, or at least a couple extra seconds, because YouTube bases its algorithm off of watch time. The more watch time a video has, the further the video will go. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. The 100 questions are intended to challenge a religious leader, so I'd appreciate it if you give it a read. Okay, back to the video.
But I sense that that's really where we're going to go with all of this.
It's really sort of with the wellness company. It's kind of the
You know, these people can sit here and talk about this shit all they want, but when the rubber meets the road, every single time, the ideas espoused by people who are not absolutely psychotic like them always win out at the end of the day. Look at Elon Musk, for example. He buys Twitter, and he's got all this shit about we're not banning anybody. We're not, everyone's going to have a right to speech and blah, blah, blah. Freedom of speech platform. And within, a very short time, he allowed Kanye West back onto the platform. And it took Kanye all of 20 minutes or something to say he's going to go DEFCON 4, death, D-E-A-T-H, DEFCON 4 on the Jews. And he gets banned. Again, Kanye West did. Because of the psychotic, unglued from reality shit that he was saying. It took him, actually, I think it was a week or something before he said some crazy shit that got him banned. Same with a whole bunch of other people. A whole bunch of people were let back on and then subsequently banned once again. That's what happens when you are working with a system. You can sit here and pretend you know what you're talking about, but when you actually get into the system, you see all of the reasonings that people had for doing the things that they did previously. Decisions start to make more sense. So anyway, it's just stupid. It's like people getting angry with Kevin McCarthy over the shit that he did with the House of Representatives, and then kicking him out, and then getting Mike Johnson in, getting even angry over what Mike Johnson did. The dude was just doing his job and realized that his job was more complicated than Republican nutcases seem to claim.
Won't be happy about those new things being built. They want the monopoly on everyone's minds. But I sense
nobody wants a monopoly on anybody's mind. I have no idea what you're talking about. Jesus.
That's really where we're going to go with all of this.
It's really sort of with the wellness company. It's kind of the philosophy that really I adopted as a motivator to come into the wellness company.
Oh my God. Is he shouting out his garbage again? His pseudoscience, what do you call it? Homeopathy company or whatever. Is that what he's doing right now? Quick interjection. This won't take long, I promise. I just want to say I'd appreciate it if you check my Patreon. owenmorgan.com/Patreon to find it. YouTube's algorithm goes up and down, so I can never predict where it's going to be. Having patrons gives me some level of stability. Okay, back to the video.
It's meeting a need, help people that feel that people are providing them services and goods or hate them or couldn't care about them.
Yeah. Well, I love
the opposite. This is the opposite. We care very much.
I'm not kidding. You guys know what it's like to read ads on
there's a way to do that. I don't feel like dealing with it right now.
Podcast, but I love reading the wellness company's ads because it's true what I'm reading. You know what I mean? 100%. I am reading it off a teleprompter.
Have you met everybody?
Oh my God. No, it's not true. It's garbage. All of it. Complete nonsense. He says, I am reading it off a teleprompter. No shit. Really?
And I editorialize. I don't think I've met everybody in here, but hi everybody. They're all smiling too. So that's nice. But
what did this have to do with anything? Why are we talking about people in the studio now?
But it's true.
Is he trying to distract him from saying that, when I advertise your wellness company, I read it off of a teleprompter?
I pulled a couple of our leaders aside and I said, thank you for being who you said you were, which is a rare thing these days.
Yeah, that's the rarest.
Well, isn't that true? Through the pandemic, we met each other over Zoom or over prompters. And then when you actually meet people in person, you say, wow, Dr. Drew he's a pretty reasonable guy. And I tell all the girls.
No, he's not.
So follow me. I said, he is as handsome in real life as you see him on TV. And he does juice on a lot of supplements. But
I do much supplements.
What we have learned is that people want to manage their own situation a lot more before they pull the trigger and go to a doctor.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I would love to manage my own situation without having to go to a doctor because it's expensive. But guess what? Doctors know what they're talking about and what they're doing. Doctors are necessary. And what's more, the medical field is also necessary. And they also know what they're doing in the medical field. So I want to hear any of this shit about, doctors being inferior or not useful or whatever. It's complete garbage, all of it.
There's that on the medical side, but I think that goes out a little more globally. If people want to be left alone to manage their own lives.
Yes.
Why is the blob? Why have they adopted this sort of un-American, centralized, really what they don't understand. Power.
Un-American, centralized what?
But listen, what they don't understand is this all started with the Jacobins. They created this model of a centralized, at that point, it was a monarchical administration.
Wait, started with the what? Hold on. Let me listen again.
But listen, what they don't understand is this all started with the Jacobins.
I'm not understanding the word he's saying. Let me turn it up. Maybe it's just because I'm not hearing it well.
They adopted this sort of un-American, centralized, really what they don't understand. Power. But listen, what they don't understand is this all started with the Jacobins.
The Jackmans? Like Hugh Jackman? Who are the Jackmans? What is he talking about right now?
They created this model of a centralized, at that point, it was a monarchical administrative state. Then the Russians and everybody turned into a single leader administrative state with a charismatic leader.
It sounds like he's talking about Tsarist Russia and the lead up to communism. By the way, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Hitler got his position by demonizing communists. That was a fear-mongering tactic that he used. He freaked people out, scared them silly, scared the bejesus out of them, if you will, by saying that communism is coming for him. He was a National Socialist, quote unquote, but it was not socialism as we understand it today. Socialism as we understand it today is more of something where you have social programs built in, like Social Security, unemployment insurance and stuff. That's what socialism was back then. But on top of that, in our understanding of socialism in this society, it's one in which you kind of build a cooperative. So everybody owns the company. Once the company reaches a certain size, it's not a private company anymore. Everybody who works there has a share in its success, basically. So if you have like 5,000 employees, then they all own a certain amount of the company and they all benefit from it. They all get dividends from it. They have unions built right in and they vote for who their bosses are. And then the bosses vote for who their bosses are all the way up the chain. Unions baked right into the system is an important component of socialism also. Basically, not communism in the sense that, wages are kind of equalized or in the sense that like the government owns all private property, not personal property like toothbrushes, but private property like Facebook. The government owns that in communism or in previous communistic regimes. In socialist systems, though, it's owned by the workers. Like these companies are owned by the workers. That's our understanding of socialism today. In Germany in the 1940s, in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, honestly in the 19 teens, like 1910 to 20 even, their understanding was just social programs like unemployment insurance and stuff, like I said a minute ago. It was much more, it was much weaker as a system. And it appealed to the working man. As you can see today, Donald Trump is... Trumpists love Social Security. They love the Social Security program. And I agree, it's great. I like Social Security also. But that's the kind of thing that Hitler would talk about. We want social programs and so on and so forth. And he used that to build power with populist language, talking about how the working man is forgotten, and he's a working man himself. You know, he had a rough upbringing and nobody loved him and all this other stuff, and he would build his speeches to a crescendo, getting more emotional as time went on, and start yelling by the end of it while it was building, and he'd be pounding the table and everything, and getting people whipped into an emotional blood frenzy, you know. And the Nazi Party, National Socialists, what that meant, talked about cultural communism all the time as an evil. Equality of opportunity and equality of outcome. They talked about that as a problem. They said that people believe that they have a right to better job positions or whatever just because they're this race or something. You know, like they talked about affirmative action effectively being evil. It's one of the world's biggest evils and stuff like that. That's all Nazi shit. That all came from Hitler. Well, maybe not originally, but he used it at the very least. And that's what we're listening to Dr. Drew say right now. I just want to point that out. I'm not saying that he's a Nazi by any stretch of the imagination. I don't believe that. About Drew Pinsky, that's his name. Sorry, Drew Pinsky.
At that point, it was a monarchical administrative state. Then the Russians and everybody turned into a single leader.
He said jackals, apparently. One of the people in the chat, the Bart Prince says, the Brat Prince says he was saying the word jackals. Okay. Well, dehumanizing language like that isn't fantastic, but at least I know what he said now, right? So let's listen to his, what sounds like a breakdown of like the evils of communism. Exactly what Hitler said and did. I'm just saying. Not saying he is like Hitler, that he is Hitler. I'm just saying this is just a weird thing for him to like go on about constantly.
Sort of un-American, centralized. Really, what they don't understand. Power. But listen, what they don't understand is this all started with the Jacobins. They created
the Jackmans. I feel like he's saying the Jackmans still. Maybe he did say jackals.
This model of a centralized. At that point, it was a monarchical administrative state.
I don't know what he's talking about. He's talking about Tsarist Russia, isn't he? In the 1800s, the late 1800s.
Then the Russians and everybody turned into a single leader administrative state with a charismatic leader. We're going back now to the bureaucracy itself, the blob being the things that runs our life, which is go back to feudalism.
You know, I think if you confuse an entire generation of people about the founding of the country, in this case, the United States, which is the greatest human experiment ever, that everyone in this room and everyone watching this, if you're an American.
Do you know why this is considered an experiment? You know, they say the great experiment that is America. For one thing, among others, there are a variety, but one of the reasons is because not mixing religion and politics was a brand new concept. When Thomas Jefferson tried it in the 1700s or whatever. 1780 to 1788 basically is when the Constitution was like being written, and well, that's when the war was happening and came to an end. I think 1776 the war started, and then 1780, I believe, the Revolutionary War ended. I think, don't quote me on that. 1787, the Constitution was completed, and then I believe it was ratified in 1788. Again, not 100% sure on those dates, so don't quote me. Pretty confident that's right, though. Anyway, the point that I'm so laboriously getting to is the Great American Experiment was the Great American Experiment because it was one of the first times in it was the first time in human history that we have ever tried as humans secularism, a non-religious state on a scale that large. We've had secularism on smaller scales, but never like the United States. So go on and tell me more about the great, the great experiment that is the United States and how fantastic it is.
Of people about the founding of the country, in this case, the United States, which is the greatest human experiment ever, that everyone in this room and everyone watching this, if you're an American, your ancestors had it worse than you do. It has worked here in an extraordinary way. the default position of humanity is not that we basically get along. I know there's some strife on our streets right now, but what we have done to bring everyone from every corner of Earth into this country and make it roughly work for 250 years is a freaking miracle.
Yeah.
It's a miracle, and it's a very precious gift that we seem like we're slightly handing away. But I think that the general default position of humans is to want to control each other. And that was one of the things that really, if I was being slowly red-pilled for a couple of years, once COVID really kicked in.
Oh my God, he said red-pilled. He's being red-pilled. That's bad. That's a really bad sign that he's using that term. Red-pilled commonly means I've been indoctrinated into Nazi ideology. That's what it means most of the time. Not all the time. It can also mean like inducted into like a QAnon belief system. Sometimes that's what it means. I guess it just means like accepting an extremist far-right belief system generally, right? Is that fair to say?
And the more they kept saying, you must get vaxxed. And for the thing that really...
Nobody said you must. What are you talking about?
He clinched it for me, you know this, is that I had 2 small companies. So I didn't have 100 employees. I think it was OSHA was 100 employees. They were going to force you to vax them. But I had a couple employees in 2 different companies.
Nobody was going to be forced to get vaccinated. It was not a vaccine mandate. It was a testing mandate, a weekly testing mandate. You had to get a vaccine, or I'm sorry, you had to get a COVID test every week, and you could be exempted from that test by getting a vaccine if you chose. That's not a vaccine mandate. Oh, and by the way, Fox News, with all the bitching that they did about the vaccine and vaccine mandates and everything, their vaccine mandate at Fox News was even more strict than was suggested by the federal government. Either way, it doesn't matter because that never happened. It never actually went through.
And I'm sitting in the studio one day at the height of COVID where they didn't even want me to have people in my house. And, I was running illegal parties and I was doing
he'd have soirees.
Yeah, so you're saying when at the height of COVID, when people were dying left and right because, there's this brand new illness that we were unfamiliar with and we knew nothing about. You're telling me that at the time you were inviting people over to your house and trying to spread it? ? Like what were you doing? And why? I mean, I know Dave Rubin is Jewish, not Christian. Well, Jewish by heritage and identity. Like he identifies as Jewish heavily. But he's like, he's kind of pushing a lot of Christian evangelical extremist ideas.
It was a salon,
like speakeasy parties,
but people from all sort of political discipline, and nobody wore masks, nobody freaked out.
I felt that tequila was the ultimate way of keeping
disinfected.
Yeah, exactly.
Listening to this dude as a doctor talk about how no one wore masks and it was great is just disgusting. It's straight up wrong. This is so stupid. He knows better. He's lying, right? Tell me that he's not lying. Give me some explanation for why he's saying and doing what he's saying and doing, other than he's lying. Something else. I'll take anything else.
But I remember when the OSHA mandate came out, they said if you're a company with over 100 employees, you can force everyone to get vaxxed. I remember
that is not what they said. I don't think that the mandate never actually went through anyway. It was challenged in the Supreme Court and was, canceled basically. But they said you have to get tested once a week if you aren't vaccinated. If you are vaccinated, you're exempted. Jesus, dude. These people are shameless liars. Shameless liars.
I was live on air and I'm looking at my producer and my director and they're both in their 20s, perfectly healthy, fit guys. And I remember thinking like, I don't have 100 employees, but what if I did? What right would I have to say because you work for me, you have the privilege of working for me, like I'm the king, that you have to get injected with something. So
That's not what's happening. You're not telling these people that they must. The government is saying they must get tested. And this is a temporary measure because the world was dealing with a massive virus, a massive pandemic. Now, their fears of emergency powers, of the use of emergency powers, are not completely unfounded. Use of emergency powers did lead to Hitler's ability to take over in Germany the way that he did. That's how he took over, the Enabling Act. It gave him well, kind of him, the ability, kind of. I mean, he violated the spirit of the Constitution and the letter of the Constitution in many cases. Anyway, the Enabling Act gave him the ability to just declare a permanent state of emergency, which is not intended, and write laws just right off the top of his head. Like, he could do whatever he wanted. He is now the law creator rather than who it was originally supposed to be, which is the Reichstag, the Congress building, basically. Congressman. So, anyway, I get why people are not comfortable with, like, emergency powers, but it doesn't always lead to bad stuff. Sometimes it's necessary for the safety of society. And if they put those emergency powers down at the end of it, then great. That's good, right? Justin Trudeau was dealing with this, trucker protest and used emergency powers to do a whole bunch of stuff and then put the emergency powers down.
I'm very proud that none of the guys that I work with, and then it grew up to now we have 12 at my production company and people on this side too, and nobody did, and everybody moved to Florida and everyone's doing just fine. And then when you hear all of these stories about vaccine injuries, and everyone knows people with vaccine injuries. I know a young
oh my God
girl in her late 20s.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not sure if I've said this in this part or not. I'm going to say it again just in case. Vaccine injury is a real thing. It does happen, but it does not happen to any concerning or real degree with the COVID vaccines, with the mRNA vaccines. If it happened with the mRNA vaccines or with any COVID vaccines at all, the vaccine was pulled. AstraZeneca vaccine was pulled in Britain. We weren't using it in the United States at all anyway. It was pulled in Britain because they worried that it was causing blood clots. So they stopped giving it to people. And instead of recognizing, oh, hey, wow, the government did the right thing here. That's fantastic. Instead of recognizing and acknowledging that, people started calling it the clot shot. I personally always preferred the Fauci ouchie. That's just me. Anyway, instead of recognizing that this was a problem, it was recognized and it was dealt with, people propagandized about it. The point is that vaccine injury exists, but if there was any evidence of any kind of vaccine injury whatsoever, the vaccine was halted for COVID. In fact, all vaccines are halted the moment vaccine injury becomes apparent. It's just stopped. So anyway, yeah, no more propagandizing about this, please. I'm begging you. It's so stupid.
Who suddenly is having some vision problems.
But what if there were no mandates? What if
there weren't any, and there aren't any now?
We had a world where it was brought out, no one knew, it was a crisis, and it was always free choice.
Sure.
And then we built
it has always been free choice.
Informed consent as we
always do, have always done.
Right.
Information. What if it just went like that? Where would we be now?
That is exactly what happened during COVID. There was informed consent through all of it, and nobody was mandated to do anything. If you didn't want a vaccine, you didn't have to get one. And there were options. It's not like, well, you just can't have a job if you don't want a vaccine. That's not what happened. You could have a job and not be vaccinated. You just had to get tested every single week. That's all. And these people are turning this into a big thing because they have a persecution complex. My God, dude.
We'd be better, right? Wouldn't we? Wouldn't we be better off?
I think undoubtedly we'd be better.
I think
they live in a fantasy land. That's literally what happened and what is happening.
I want to talk about you've spoken a little bit about, I want to talk about your tweet about California and the homelessness thing, which you just, I think a couple of days ago put up. And then I want to talk about mRNA and so-called turbo cancers, which I don't like that.
Oh my God, this is the conspiracy is waiting for.
Term at all. But there may be some increased cancer, something in young people. Talk to us about that.
Are you going to give us literally any evidence for this at all? Any? There's no evidence for this, by the way. This conspiracy theory about turbo cancer caused by vaccines, it's false. Nobody has any reason to believe that there's a jump in cancer incidences because of people's vaccinations or whatever. It's just fabricated garbage, of course.
And you also are concerned about multiple mRNA vaccines affecting immune function and thereby affecting cancer oncogenesis.
Well, talk about a great experiment. to give, if we follow the CDC program right now, people our age should be on our 9th shot
of COVID.
Ninth.
No, I've followed everything pretty succinctly, and I've got 4. But okay.
And then immunocompromised 12 shots.
I have patients.
What a grand experiment that is, right?
Listen, I have patients.
Why? What's the problem here? Why is he complaining about this? I don't understand. Did you guys hear about that one guy? I think it was in Germany, who was seemingly effectively addicted to getting vaccines, COVID vaccines. He got like 214 of them or something since the start of all of this. And that's not recommended. You can suffer from immune system fatigue, I think is what it's called. Immune system fatigue. I forget. Anyway, you can get that. That's a problem. And that's why it's not recommended. You need to get vaccines at a rate that is suggested by doctors and immunologists and all of that. People start studying this guy. They asked him, can we study you? He basically got 2 vaccines a week since the start of the pandemic. They said, can we study you? And he said, yeah, as long as you give me another vaccine. To the researchers' surprise, he didn't have immune fatigue that way. That like everybody thought that was going to be the case, all the researchers. He actually apparently was more immune to COVID than somebody with only like 4 vaccines like me, for example. We shouldn't be getting that many vaccines. That's not useful or helpful or a good idea. But it is something that, has been studied. Getting like hundreds.
That probably have had 4 or 5 boosters, I bet. I stopped encouraging at 3. No, I wasn't even encouraging. I was saying, well, I was just presenting and then presenting my concerns. And most of my patients older patients, they felt they had something to be gained by it as opposed to any real risk, because I have much older patients.
There is basically no risk, effectively 0.
Patients for the most part. And so the time horizon on living is 10 years max in many cases. And so
what is that?
Opposed to any real risk, because I have much older patients for the most part. And so the time horizon on living is 10 years max in many cases.
Okay.
And so you're not going to get some of these problems, and they would like not to have the acute problem up front. So, okay. And I've seen very little in the way of vaccine reaction.
So he's saying they're only going to live for 10 years. If they get vaccine injured, who cares? It's irrelevant anyway. That's what he's saying right now.
However, I did make a VAERS report for a 100-year-old lady, 99 actually, who had a severe cardiac arrhythmia, did not want to go to the hospital, as elderly patients often do. They just refuse to go. And I had to manage it all as an outpatient, which I successfully did. Made a VAERS report. On the report, they go, we'll get back to you. Nothing.
Okay. Interesting. VAERS is a system that I think it's set up by the government where you can report vaccine injuries or problems with vaccines. And it's an important component to vaccinology or whatever. It's important to know what's happening or if anyone is like reporting an issue or something. It's important to know this stuff. It's a valuable tool used in the war against viruses. VAERS is the database, but it's a completely unregulated database. Anybody can do a VAERS report, anybody, for any reason or no reason at all, and it doesn't have to be true. You don't have to be in anything. You can just type it in if you want. And researchers watching the VAERS system will watch for patterns. And if they find a pattern, if there's a single report out of 10 million doses, one report of somebody having a cardiac arrhythmia, it's very unlikely that this is like a problem that was caused by the vaccine. Maybe, but it's not statistically significant enough to even worry about. Even if the results came back that you were 100% correct about this, that, it causes cardiac arrhythmia or whatever, you still probably wouldn't hear anything back, because why would you? You're just, providing data for somebody. Now they're researching it, and that's like the end of your role, just telling them. Again, literally anybody can do this, and it disturbs the hell out of me that he has a practice. Sorry. Yep.
It was a very significant. She had a supraventricular rhythm. I think she had a rapid atrial fib, and she refused to go in with that. And I didn't know where to anticoagulate her. 99-year-old. It was a very touchy situation, and worked out. Got her back in sinus. And but
you thought it could be related to the vaccine.
Oh,
right?
It was within hours of the vaccine.
Okay, so here's the point.
Wait, it was within hours? The whole premise that these people operate off of is the idea that, people suffer from like long-term vaccine injury, longer than 10 years. I mean, isn't that what he said a few minutes ago? How do you know it had anything to do with the vaccine still? It needs to be studied. Just because it happened within hours of the vaccine does not mean it was caused by it. And as a doctor, as a medical professional, as a scientist, he should know that. He probably does. He's just completely full of shit.
The VAERS system, by proxy of reporting, is is essentially determining causality. It's always been, well, VAERS can't.
No.
Determine causality. Yes, it can, because you've made the decision as a doctor. I've made VAERS reports. I only report things to VAERS, Vaccine Event Reporting System.
Sure.
The fact that these two fucking morons, I'm sorry, I'm not that guy. I'm not going to do that. The fact that these two people are making reports to the VAERS system, among others, again, Trump supporters or literally anybody, including you, can make these reports if you want. The fact that these people, these two guys right here, are doing these reports makes me trust it even less. It's fine to have that data. It's valuable to have data gathered together in one place, but it needs to be evaluated closer to be believed.
Because I want to be sure, number one, and it's time consuming to do it and everything else. But also, if I just put in reports willy-nilly, there's imprisonment or federal fines that I could face. And
no, I don't think so. Hang on. I typed in, is there a punishment for the first thing that popped up? False accusations. Wow. Okay. And then even further down, is there a penalty for calling false rummy? I love it. All right. For false VAERS reports, VAERS. It stands for Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. There we go. Vaccine Adverse Event. God damn it. I'm going to get this term out. Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. Obviously, it does not, just because it's been reported, does not mean that it's an actual problem that's caused by a vaccine. But anyway, this guy seems to think that it is. And yeah, I don't think that there's any penalty for entering data in. To my knowledge, there isn't.
And VAERS has the patient's name, their address, their email, their phone number, my name,
sometimes
all my contact information. So when the CDC says, well, it's not verified, well, go verify it. They can call.
No, it's not about it's not verified. It's that the data is not bearing that out. You still have to do studies on this.
You know how they verify it? They got a guy. They got a guy that decides.
But that again goes to that bureaucratic middle management piece that
this is so fucking stupid, dude. I'm sorry. I can't.
No one knows really who's in charge when it comes to anything right now. You wonder what's going on at the college campus.
Nobody knows what's in charge? Or who's in charge? Are you kidding? Of course we do. We can just look this shit up.
They got
a guy that decides.
But that again goes to that bureaucratic middle management piece that no one knows really who's in charge when it comes to anything right now. You wonder what's going on at the college campuses, and it's like, who's in?
Why does it keep bringing this back to college campuses? If you don't know what's happening right now culturally, or what happened not too long ago, I don't think it's happening now, but Columbia University in New York City, not very far away from me, by the way. I live, in that vicinity. Columbia University in Manhattan had a bunch of protests by students and by local students, people who came from NYU, which is also pretty close, to help, protest Israel and Palestine issues. They were protesting the university investing in Israeli goods or something. They want to remove investments, basically boycott. It's called the BDS movement, boycott, divest, and sanctions. That's their right because they have they have free speech. That's what free speech is all about. So this guy who wrote a book on book burning, apparently, or I don't even remember what his book is actually about. This guy who wrote a book titled "Don't Burn This Book" is complaining that people have the free right to say what they want on college campuses.
Who's in charge of any of this? Even in the cities, it's like, all right, well, are the police allowed to do their job or not? So ultimately,
nobody is asking that.
What happens is there's just sort of a clown car of incompetence as it relates to everything. And then on the COVID side, the fact that they were also telling us to stay indoors and not get outside, and that I had people yelling at me because I was walking my dog and all the rest.
Okay, I have no clue what he's talking about here, but nobody knew what was happening in the very, very early days of the pandemic. I didn't know if I should go outside. I was staying indoors during like the, for the early days. I didn't want to go outside. I thought it might be a bad idea. I didn't know how it spread. Didn't know if I should be touching my mail. Was it on surfaces or was it spread by air or what? I had no clue. So the point is that, yeah, we didn't know exactly what was happening or how to deal with it or whatever. We didn't know. And there should be nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. Now we do. Now we know it's not really, we don't have to worry about like being outdoors or whatever with COVID. It's okay. We can be outdoors. But of course, Dave Rubin is going to claim that it's the left who, to this day, apparently doesn't think that he should be outdoors with his dog.
Don't work out. And then everyone started drinking more and eat Chinese food instead of cooking and all the rest of it. It was just every layer that we could have been hit on. Yeah. We were hit on. And I'm certainly not a scientific expert like you guys are.
We were yelling.
No, you're not. You're not a scientific expert. That's the key here.
There's a fundamental human aspect to what life is supposed to be about.
How about if you're 8 to 15 years old and when you were dependent on your peers for your cognitive and social development and you're forbidden from seeing them, and if you do, you're trying to kill your parents.
Okay, I don't know what that was about. But yeah, it was not great that kids were not in schools. In fact, schools, I'll take a step and say maybe people should have, maybe the governments should have opened schools sooner than they did. Because it had a very, very adverse effect on kids. If nothing else, there was an adverse effect as the result of decreased social interaction, if absolutely nothing else. You know, we can look back and criticize certain decisions that were made without lying and propagandizing about this and claiming that they, quote unquote, are out to get you or some other nonsense.
Your family.
Think about the kids right now that did not get to their high school graduation because of COVID, and now they're not getting to their Columbia or UCLA or USC graduation because of these protests. I mean,
I'm sorry? Graduations were halted because of protests? I don't remember that. By the way, my big problem here is with the fact that the cops are like brutalizing people and arresting them illegally. Has a chilling effect. People don't want to go to these protests. Like me. I can't be arrested. Even if I would be released within the hour, I cannot be arrested. It's too big of a risk for me. I want to participate in these protests. I can't. First of all, it takes a boxing. Being without it for a single day or even half a day is bad. Second, what happens if I can't, work? I have shit to do every single day. I'm busy. I'm working now. Of course, it's fun. I enjoy my work, but it's still technically considered work. I'm earning money and all that other stuff, right? What happens if I suddenly cannot work? So anyway, the point is, my problem isn't with the fact that police are there at these campuses. My problem is with the fact that they are taking people's free speech rights away. I don't like that at all. And what are these people, these specific 3 guys on screen here doing about it? They're saying that the liberals are to blame, the left-wing people who give enough of a shit to protest about an issue. They're to blame. Even if the college students are wrong, even if they were protesting in favor of Israel, I still stand for their right to protest. The right to protest is sacrosanct. You should be allowed to criticize anybody, your government or your school or your whatever, your pastor. It doesn't matter. Criticism shouldn't be banned.
Stolen a fundamental...
Oh, and you shouldn't get a chilling effect of maybe I'll be arrested either. Should be comfortable knowing that you won't be arrested for expressing your free speech.
Not get to their high school graduation because of COVID, and now they're not getting to their Columbia or UCLA or USC
USC
graduation because of these protests. I mean, you've stolen a fundamental part of their life. And I suspect they will not be that friendly when they're dealing with older people in their day.
Well, I have said that. I've said the 18 to 15-year-old, 8-15-year-old, I've tried to speak to them to the extent that I can. And said, you should be pissed.
Yeah.
And I hope you're furious and you never forget.
You know, my wife didn't get to walk at graduation. It's looking like maybe she won't be able to this time around either. I'm not sure, but it sucks. That sucks, absolutely. Who's to blame for this now? Are they blaming the left for not being able to attend college graduations? How'd you get there?
It should never happen to you again. You should never find a way to make sure that this does not happen.
You know, there's a whitewashing going on. My son went to medical school during the time of the pandemic at University of Texas at Houston. So his class is in the beginning, middle, and end of this COVID pandemic, right? And anatomy labs are shut down. They can't go into the medical center, all these different adjustments, testing, vaccines, what have you. I go to the graduation. And I listened to every word, the provost, the class president, the guest speaker. No mention of COVID.
Wow.
And no mention.
I don't understand. Why would they mention COVID at a graduation?
Of the vaccines. So we have the biggest.
Wait, are you trying to tell me that they're holding a graduation? Interesting.
Health crisis in history, and the medical schools are whitewashing it as if it never occurred.
Well, guess why?
What would they have to say about COVID at a graduation? What is he even talking about?
They had a little something to do with it.
They're culpable for the excesses.
Really?
And were you fired from your job? Is that what happened?
Yeah, my contract was not renewed.
Okay.
Oh, that's not being fired. That's just not having a renewed contract. That's different.
At my institution, I was professor of medicine, had a perfect clinical track record.
Professor of medicine, how many thousands of publications?
I have over 1,000, medical communications. I'm over.
Doesn't matter if you have 1,000 publications. You know what matters? How many citations you have. Peter McCullough. We can look this up. Let's look it up. Scholar.google.com. Wow, he actually has thousands. But I'd be willing to bet that these citations, are they cited in other journals? Is that what this is? Oh, cited by nature.com, cited by nejm.org, wiley.com. I'm not sure what wiley.com is, or plos.org, jamanetwork.com. I'm not sure what these companies are or whatever. All right, to be fair, he does have citations on some of his studies. Okay, here's one of his studies. What are the characteristics, outcomes, and factors associated with death among critically ill patients with coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19 in the U.S.? Why did he write with coronavirus disease 2019? In a cohort of 2,215 adults with COVID-19 who were admitted to intensive care units at 65 sites, 784, or 35.4%, died within 28 days, with wide variation among hospitals. Factors associated with death included older age, male, sex, morbid obesity, coronary artery disease, cancer, acute organ dysfunction, and admission to a hospital with fewer intensive care unit beds. Okay, that was the question. Those are the findings. Now, what's his conclusion here? This study identified demographic, clinical, and hospital-level factors associated with death in critically ill patients with COVID-19 that may be used to facilitate the identification of medications and supportive therapies that can improve outcomes. All right, it seems pretty vanilla. Just a super basic study to show what the outcomes are in certain cases. That's fine. That's useful, I guess. This guy, honestly, though, should not be in the medical field at all. It's disgusting. Those are all decent references, but you need to dig in. Yeah. COVID is coronavirus disease. That's the root of the word. Okay. Maybe that was fine. I mean, I don't write medical articles, or I don't write scientific articles for medical journals or whatever. So maybe I was just not, wrong there.
Professor of medicine, had a perfect clinical track record.
Professor of medicine, how many thousands of publications?
I have over 1,000, medical communications. I'm over 700.
What the hell is a medical communication?
In the National Library of Medicine. If anybody who commented on COVID, I'm the most published person you can get on TV.
I don't know about that.
So my opinion should mean something. I completely took over this field. I switched. I was an internist and cardiologist focusing on heart and kidney disease. I saw this.
Oh, he's not a virologist?
Thing coming. And in a few weeks, I was not seeing the leadership anywhere. See, who's going to step up and treat it? So it was.
What are you talking about? We had plenty of leadership doing that. Anthony Fauci was one of them. There were a bunch of people. There were countless peer-reviewed articles on this stuff, and he's one of those people who's writing peer-reviewed articles about death outcomes and stuff. Mortality rate, morbidity rate, so on and so forth.
Myself, there was a group that formed called FLCC. Didier Rialt in France, he's the most published microbiologist in the world. He set up a treatment center in Marseille, France, started treating all these elderly. Trump was given a report from Didier Raoult that said, listen, it looks like hydroxychloroquine could play a role. That's where that came from.
Oh, here we go.
He's the most published microbiologist in history.
Well, he was wrong. I don't know if he's published or what. I don't know. I don't know who he is or what, but he's wrong. He said it looks like hydroxychloroquine might play a role. Well, first of all, that was like way premature for him to say. He had no evidence that that was the case. None, or certainly not enough, for one thing. And for another thing, it turned out to not be true. Hydroxychloroquine and what's the other one? Z-Pak combination, erythromycin and hydroxychloroquine. And it turns out there's no evidence that that does anything for anybody. And Trump just couldn't let it die. Instead, he'd rather other people die rather than his conspiracy theory that he could not give up on.
And he is now his career is being disassembled by the...
Dude, we're just like beating this octopus for no reason. He's just sitting there like drinking water. Jeez.
French authorities.
We've got work to do to build new...
I'm sorry, wait a minute. What did he just say about French authorities?
Bush microbiologist in history, and he is now his career is being disassembled by the French authorities.
How? How are the French authorities disassembling his career precisely? I am super suspicious here. I'm sorry. I just don't believe this guy without any evidence. Like, I'll take anything. Give me anything.
We've got work to do to build new things and make sure that people can be online and that they can practice medicine in the way that they see fit. And
people can be online. Never been a problem. And you shouldn't be practicing medicine the way you see fit. You should be practicing the way that the scientific community has determined is the best way, through peer-reviewed studies and, all the other various means of determining whether something is correct or likely or whatever.
I think we need.
Go ahead.
I would say I think mockery is the order of the day.
Yeah.
Oh, mockery. Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm down. Let's do it.
I do. I think the insanity. We have to mock that people for their excesses. We have to shame them. They need to be. We're never going to be holding people accountable. But when they say stupid stuff, they need to be mocked.
Well, Drew, I know you have a bit of a...
I'm down. Okay, let's do it.
A checkered history with Fauci, or how do you want to describe it? You have a back and forth with him, let's say. Over
No,
the years,
I was a deep admirer. I don't know if you were.
Yeah.
I was a deep admirer. And the reason I got involved in radio is because he was telling young physicians, you got to educate about this thing. He was really saying, you got to scare people is what he was saying.
Right.
He's telling young physicians to get educated about the virus, like focus on the virus. No, he was telling people that they should specialize in immunology, or they should do what they can to learn about this subject because it'll be valuable to people. I don't think he's saying he needs to scare people, or that anyone needs to be scared by this or whatever.
And I didn't recognize it as that, but in retrospect, that's what that was.
But think about it. The guy in, I believe it was May of 2020, sent an email to a friend saying that masks don't work. You don't have to wear masks when you go to Mexico.
Okay, I don't know what he's talking about here, but he's wrong. Masks do work. Oh my God, I did not mean to hit the R2 or the L2 button. Masks work. They worked then to help limit the spread of disease. And one quick and simple demonstration of that fact would be to put a mask on and use a vape pen or whatever, and just blow the vape, like the vapor or whatever, out of the mask and see how far it reaches. Then take the mask off and blow the vape juice again without the mask. Pretty clear indication of what it does, how it's beneficial, how masks have been beneficial. Yeah, COVID is a really tiny virus, a tiny set of molecules, and slips right through the mask. But it also prevents air from passing as quickly and easily as it would otherwise, from spreading out as far as it would otherwise. Masks were proven to be effective in the early days.
Vacation, and your kids don't have to wear them. And then within days, he's out there giving a press conference to continue the school closures and to wear masks.
No idea what he's talking about. Sounds made up.
These people, now he retired and he's still getting his $400,000 a year salary, but nobody was fired. You know, there's been no reckoning. The only people who got fired were doctors and nurses who didn't want to get vaccinated.
Right.
So we've never had a reckoning, and I fear.
Doctors and nurses didn't have to get vaccinated. I don't think they could do a testing mandate, or I'm sorry, they could do a testing, weekly testing or daily testing in many cases, I believe. Some companies chose to fire people if they didn't want to get vaccinated, I think, but I don't even remember. It's been forever now. Anyway, that's not a requirement now, so it's not like this, controlling deep state that's like running everything and was going to put us in a perpetual state of emergency so they could control it all. Like, that's just completely made up.
That we will never have a reckoning with any of this, a real sort of governmental reckoning. And because of that, we will do it agaan. They will say, well, it's...
we almost went further with the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
I think there's a pushback on that finally, yes?
What?
You know what I'm talking about? The World Health Organization treaty? You don't know what this is?
No, wait.
Damn.
This is a takeover.
Oh my God, you're going to go nuts.
You think Fauci and the CDC and the NIH were bad? The next time,
Ooh, a new conspiracy.
it's going to be the WHO giving us orders on when to shut down and masking.
Oh my God, I remember this. This is an old one. Oh, like really old. Holy shit. This is like only spoken about by the deepest far-right conspiracy theorists. And I found one person talking about it, and I looked into it pretty deeply. Hang on. I don't remember when this was. It was May something, I think. Yes, here it is, right here. It's false. Of course, completely made up. After I looked into this, it was a fabrication. People fear-mongering and trying to just scare the bejesus out of everybody to the best of their ability, just because, seemingly. This is Greg Locke talking about this conspiracy that they just brought up. May 15th, 2022. So like years ago now.
So when all the witches get loosed and all the gas prices go up and all the stores start folding and people start losing their businesses and...
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Did that ever happen? Any of that stuff, by the way, after 2022? Between 2022 and 2024, was like any of this stuff real? Or is this just all made up? And is he going to address his error now that it's been proven false?
Losing their businesses, and guess what's going to happen on May 22nd? You just didn't hear about it because Biden don't want you to. They've given full authority to the World Health Organization.
Who is they, A, and B, no.
Matter of fact, it's funny that the video's in Chinese. They know who owns us.
Maybe the fact that you don't speak any Chinese languages like Mandarin or Cantonese or what's it? Fujianese is another one, I think. The fact that he doesn't speak any of those languages maybe should be a sign that he should get someone who actually speaks the language in, who's unbiased, to translate it for you. Or there are apps that can translate this stuff for you. Just play audio and the app will tell you what's being said. It's not flawless, but it's okay, I suppose. It's decent. Did the government, hire people to make these apps too? Is that what it is?
And now the World Health Organization has the power to take over the sovereignty of the United States of America.
No.
And shut down anytime, anywhere they so choose.
No. Just completely made up. All of it.
I dare you to come up in this tent, try to shut us down with your fake pandemic bullcrap nonsense. Try to shut this church down. You hear me? You hear me? Try to shut up. We ain't ever shutting down. World.
Bro, nobody's trying to do that to you, okay? Get a grip on reality. I am begging you.
Health Organization, we ain't shutting down this church. We gonna stay open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we don't give two flips of a wooden nickel about what you or your mama says about it, you Chinese-loving devil.
Okay, wow. A nice dose of racism in there, too, I noticed. All right? Now, this is on May 22nd, this next one, 2022, when he was, when he claimed that this is going to happen. So listen to his reaction like a week later. This is a week later, right? Yeah, this is a week later.
Last week, the news media said that I was a QAnon conspiracy theorist nut job because I said something about our sovereignty being surrendered to the World Health Organization. I wish they'd fact-check me right now.
I fact-checked him myself. I looked into it because I wanted to understand, is this a real problem? Is this really happening? What's the deal? No, it's fake. Completely made up, of course.
Because you know what today is? What's today's date? Somebody tell me. Yeah, you know what starts today? Today through Tuesday is the signing of the agreement whereby we begin to surrender our states' rights and our national security and sovereignty over to the World Health Organization. If you don't think it's happening, you've lost your mind. I've talked on the phone to the people that have been in the room and know that it's happening.
Oh, and that's his evidence, I guess. He's talked to the people who claim to have been in the room. Totally. And what's their evidence for claiming that they were in the room? And what's their evidence that, this happened when they were in the room? Did they take a recording? Did they do anything? Why would China record, or why would China try to take over the United States by forcing the World Health Organization to blah, 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 whatever? It's all made up, all of it. There was some little grain of truth, very small grain of truth to it. The World Health Organization has the ability to declare pandemics, just not in the United States, but just in general. I don't remember now. It's been a while since I looked into it. I should probably look into it again, right? Take over the United States pandemic, May 22. What was this? All right, USA Today fact check from May 25th, 2022. Oh my God, please leave me alone. I don't want ads. I can't, it's just playing There's nothing that infuriates me more than ads that impose themselves upon me. Leave me alone. Jesus, dude. The WHO`'s 75th World Health Assembly began May 22nd with officials coming together in Switzerland to discuss the COVID-19 pandemic and the WHO's role in the international outbreaks. But some online, like Greg Locke, for example, and, Telegram channels, claim something more nefarious is afoot. Quote, terrifying, the Biden administration setting the stage to hand ultimate control of America's healthcare system and the U.S. national sovereignty over to the WHO, reads a Facebook post shared May 12th. Is that still up, I wonder? Let's see here. It appears to be. Yes, it is. It's still up. Oh, fascinating. I love everything about it. You know what? I'm going to take a screen cap of this. The WHO has been 100% wrong on the quote-unquote pandemic, and now Biden is giving the WHO authority to control and declare future pandemics and vaccine passports to travel for a jab that doesn't work. Anyway, yeah, insane. Let me just save this screenshot here. The post claims that the assembly will be voting on proposed amendments the Biden administration sent in January that would allow the organization to declare an international health emergency, nullifying the powers of nation states. The post generated over 250 shares in less than a day. Similar posts have amassed hundreds of interactions on Facebook and Instagram. And what we were just watching with Greg Locke, he has 2 million subbies on Facebook or something. And, I just realized that there's a thing on the side here. Wait, what's that thing on the side? Oh, that's his guitar. Okay, I thought it was me. Never mind. Greg Locke has millions, I think 2 million subbies on Facebook. And that's extremely influential. He posted this to his Facebook page, as he usually does. He posts his sermons and stuff there. Of course, I had to go digging through his sermons to find this personally. I clipped this and found this. To my knowledge, this isn't floating around anywhere except for here. And if you want, you can find my clips, owenmorgan.com/clips. Not selling you anything. It's just a place that you can go to access my clips if you want. They're organized by the week that I covered them originally. So if you find a video that you really liked, find the week or the week after when it first aired and go there and you'll find the clip.
But The Biden administration don't want you to know. They just want to push it through in the middle of the night.
Nobody is like trying to stop anybody from knowing. It's just fabricated.
And then when it all goes to hell, blame Trump for it.
Oh, blame Trump for it? What are you talking about? The amendments referred to in the Facebook post are intended to strengthen a country's reporting measures on public health events, experts told USA Today. They would not grant the WHO any authority in the U.S. I wish they'd tell us who these experts were. I don't like weasel words.
All goes to hell, blame Trump for it. Am I right?
No.
They have begun agreements right now to take away our sovereignty as a nation. So
Who is they? And no, nobody has done that.
that when the World Health Organization declares an emergency, we are automatically under the dictator, communistic rulership of the World Health Organization. And anybody that tells you I'm lying has never paid any attention to what is coming out of their mouths right now.
No, he was lying. This is a lie. Well, maybe not a lie. Maybe he's just misinformed. In my opinion, I have heard Greg Locke lie, like straight up, directly, falsely state information that he knew was false from the start. In my opinion, I think I've seen that. But maybe in this case, he just didn't realize. I don't know.
It starts today. Starts today.
So I guess that means in the next 6 months, the WHO is going to take over the United States, right? Oh, yeah, this was like years ago now when he said this. So I guess not.
And if states do not individually stand up and push back from the top down, it don't get no more military top than what I'm talking about. On speak.
What the hell is he saying?
Your phone, if I'm lying, I'm dying. God strike me dead on this platform. He said, if our states' attorney generals do not stand up and push back about what's going to happen over the next 3 days, America will effectively be lost forever.
In the next what?
About what's going to happen over the next 3 days.
Next 3 days, he said. Over the next 3 days. This is years ago, 2 years ago. And did he address this? Did he come back afterward and say, you know what? That's my mistake. I was wrong about that all along. I'm sorry, guys. No, he didn't. Of course he didn't. Greg Locke is a joke. And he falls for every conspiracy theory out there. And guess what? Now Dr. Drew, quote unquote, Dr. Drew, is falling for this same conspiracy.
America will effectively be lost forever.
Wake up, sheeple. Just insane, man. Anyway, tell me what you think in the comments. Stick around for the next part and where we're going to talk about this at more length.